Hello, Wanderley. I'm trying not to butcher anything, but I will butcher everything. Your name and the English. I don't know what is going on with my English today. But here we go. Finally, my schedule got messed up. That is the reason for the big delay. My private life got really shook up, shaken up. You know what I mean. So I will concentrate on the content of the notes, not so much on the structure notes. I will have a word or two for the structure notes, but nevertheless, the focus will be the content of the notes and structure notes and how to um, deal with them will be part of the later iterations. So I would recommend to rename the main structure node or the master structure node um, to actually make it the structure node of the book, like this. And then you could, what I would do is create an entry point. This is what you could call an entry point or like a meta tag or strong tag or whatever. All the double hashes in my as I use them, and I think it's of course I think it's a smart use, but because if it was a dumb use, I would not do it. So you could give it the book title, or if it's really important, uh, the entry point of choice. So if you search for double hashtag choice, this would be one of your results or result items, and then you would have the neat entry point. Small note on double bookkeeping. You could also create a structure node. You could create also a structure node just about choice, like this, and then um, copy this and copy this in here. So this would focus mostly on the book. This structure node would focus on the entirety of the concept of choice. And um, this is normally what I do because I quite almost read multiple books on multiple sources on one topic. So I focus way more on the topic than on the book. This the structure note for a book is, in my opinion, better suited for really impactful books like, for example, main works of philosophers that you go over and over. Uh, or read over and over again, or the Bible, or perhaps you're an artist and analyze some arts of Picasso or something like that, then it would be a good idea to make such a structure note also on a book or just on a source, I would say. And this is more on the concept. This is double book entry. So this struck me because you put information about the Zettel content, um, but um, you cannot understand what's in the note because of the title. Why did I delete that? Okay, some comments will be messed up because I started the video like 5 or 6 times at this point, and I always undo my action, so something is missing here, but no problem, I will fill it up. So um, this is just a name. So this syllogistic fallacy, I would erase syllogistic because all fallacies are just fallacies. It's no syllogistic is more like uh, a small part of the greater area of logic. So syllogistic fallacy is also a logical fallacy. At least I would delete that, but the name is mostly not helpful, because the Zettel here is about that you think more choice is better, but it is not. So a better title would be more choice is not, more choice can worsen life, for example. So you see, this is more like a conclusion of the Zettel, not a name for the Zettel. And that's a difference between titling or making a title of Zettel in your Zettelkasten, in contrast to making a title, for example, if you write something. This would be a fitting title if you, let's say, write an essay or a book or something like that, or blog post, because the title then, or subtitles, serve more functions than just represent or map the content of the part they are titling, but they are part of the text more. And here I would really recommend to make the title as representative of the content as possible, and not just like the name. You could name it like the choice well-being fallacy, for example, or just some obscure name like for example, you could name it like Schwarz paradox. Would be another name that would be that would be possible, but it obscures what is in the Zettel, and in a couple of months you wouldn't know that this is what Zettel it is from the title alone. Um, so change the title is my recommendation. Okay. If this is the most important node, and this is the structure node for the set, okay, no need for itemization, that will come later, it's not important, ignore it. Then you could frame it like this. And the book will be will be framed like this: hypothesis, perhaps reasoning, or something like that. So you break up the table of contents. You won't orientate or copy the table of contents here, but rather make your own table of content of the book and frame it like this. We have the hypothesis and we have the reasons, and perhaps you can further arguments and list the arguments in a section like this, or anything like that. But this is up to you. That's not my choice. You can do it like ever you want. In my own Zettelkasten, I have many versions of that. For example, if I have a novel that I processed, I always go just linear, because novels are stories, and story is very linear. Sometimes I have it like this, because when a book just is a proving process, or like an argumentation for some hypothesis, or for the truth or falseness of the hypothesis, then I go like this, make the hypothesis as the anchor point on anchor, and attach anything for or against to that. And perhaps you could do it like this: pro, contra, and then make a list. You can even make a table with the notes, if your app or your software solution would allow it. For example, if you use Emacs, it's no problem to use a table and perhaps have a three-part, um, a three-column table. First line would be no, okay, I messed up. Just ignore it. But you know what I mean. Personal life. Okay, I was here. So, here. That's a bit messy. I just read my comment. I hope the English is not so bad. This is not this is not what is in this note by definition. It is by Kant's definition. So that's a real important distinction. You can't just go with one definition of a concept or of a word and say by definition. Um, a way better style of framing it is if then style. So if autonomy is the capacity of choice without interference of others, then blah 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 will follow. This is way more accurate because you will encounter many attempts to grasp the concept of choice, and not all concept will allow this reasoning. Um, there's a problem with this argument. It's not a valid argument because if you define autonomy as capacity for choice, choice capacity is of course essential. It's like repeating the definition or putting the truth of the conclusion in the premise itself. It's like circular. Um, Here's a phrase: real autonomy over the choice. This is like important, but not uh, not very clear. It's not very clean. So I just read my comment. Add what you mean by real. Otherwise, it would be quite trivial because unreal autonomy wouldn't be autonomy at all. This is what you wrote is it. You have a thought in intuition and you put the intuition into words, but the intuition is just it's like I have an intuition that there's real autonomy and not real autonomy. That's the intuition, but the sentence is uh, not capturing that. So I would really expand on what you mean by real, and then it would unfold itself. Da, 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 da. Okay. This is what I do, and I highly recommend while processing the book. The book is more like a breadcrumb for the topic. So if you encounter like this, is fundamental automate um, here like this. I mean, um, you can search. Uh, yeah, you can search under the topic learned helplessness and process learned helplessness. Like you can go to the main articles which you can find on the Wikipedia page on learned helplessness. It's an experiment. I think it was first done with dogs, but later on with rats. I can remember, or it was the other way around. It was one time with dogs and one time with rats, and really important experiments on learned helplessness. And like this, you can enrich yourself, your knowledge, and the Zettelkasten also quite rapidly because now you have the context. You know what you want from the articles and can process them quite more easily. Um, the question is, why didn't you process it? Because anytime you have to reread the part of the book, the note itself wasn't helpful. A page number would suffice. This is not a critique, but more it's a thing I learned and I adapted to. The reason that is one of the reasons I don't make extensive notes, but just mark the parts of the book that I want to reread and reprocess. Um, Most of the time, the notes you are making are not sufficient, and that's not the problem of one solution could be or another solution. Okay, make better notes. But if you really make extensive notes, it would break up um, the reading flow, and I don't like it. So I just read it, mark it, and then later reread it. So my guess is that the note wouldn't suffice, and you didn't reread the part of the book. So there is no material to make it settle, but you have the intuition that this is an important settle. So yeah, this is my 2 cents. Syllogism. Okay, in general, Wikipedia is not a good choice for a source. So my recommendation is always go to the primary source. I will expand on that, I think, later on. Um, yeah, here I wrote, think of the goal of this settle. So if the title of the settle is methods of reasoning, and can't I can think of a really good use for a list of methods of reasoning, um, other than perhaps present it or anything like that. Perhaps you can make a toolbox out of it, and if you're really stuck at something, you can look at your toolbox and get some inspiration or something like that. I don't know, but it looks like a beginning of a structure note. So it will start as a list and then morph into a structured list, and then perhaps morph into lists, a list of structure nodes that contain structured lists. So multi-layered hierarchy of something like that. Okay, literature nodes. Here. As cited by Schwartz, Schartz. I don't know. Is it Schartz or is it Schwartz? I don't know. Perhaps you miswrote. I don't. Okay. It's Schwartz. Okie dokie dokie. Okay, as wrote by Schwartz. This is, in German we call it Zitieren aus zweiter Hand. In English it's perhaps second-hand citation or something like that. So I would recommend to always go to the primary source and see how the secondary source interpreted or made an interpretation of the primary source, but process the primary source. This is what I meant in the beginning. So the book is more like a collection of breadcrumbs for processing the book, processing other sources, and you will benefit highly from that. It sounds a lot, and I got the critique one time that it would slow down the process and you couldn't finish many books. But the goal is not to finish books. The goal is to learn and to enrich your Zettelkasten if you want to write with it or if you want to think with it. So it doesn't matter what you read on the topic. It's more like you could think, okay, I will dedicate like 4 weeks to 2 weeks per day and 6 days to the topic of choice, and I try to process as many sources on choice and use the book as my guide, for example. And then you would have a really good and deep knowledge of choice. I made the experience myself and was quite surprised how it changed my thinking and my competence in handling texts, because in the beginning I was really annoyed that processing like that would be such a hassle. I think the first book I processed like this was back in 2011 or 2012. It was the book is I don't know what the book. It was a book on nutrition. The Perfect Health Diet. So written by two physicians, no, physicians. So physics and not physiology was their topic, and I read every study they cited. So it was like 600 studies or something like that. It was months. So I did all day nothing but this. But after that, I had such a expansion of my knowledge about nutrition and how the problems of nutrition of science are going, because sometimes the citations were just incorrect. Sometimes I saw false reasoning, and I was very critical of the book because it was in the beginning it was a very eye-opening book for me, and I worshipped it a lot. But when I looked into it, I was very disappointed, and it made me a better critical thinker. So the going to the primary source is a very good habit to build yourself up as a thinker and as a writer. Not so much as an English speaker, as you can see of my very crass German accent. Um, okay, this is more critique on the content. Be aware of the capacity for generalization. So it's just a comparison of 6 choice items and 24 to 30 and 30. Perhaps there's an optimal range of choice. Perhaps 8 is better than 6, or perhaps 3 is better than 1 is the worst, or something like that. So I would recommend to go to the primary source and see what they are citing, and give you a picture about the topic, about this reasoning, about the area or the number of experiments that were done to compare high choice options and low choice options. Because if you don't do it like that, you're at the mercy of the interpretation of those authors, and you don't want to do it. Don't trust them. Just trust me. Don't. No, no, no. uh, don't trust anybody other than your mom. Okay, this is a repetition from the top. This is a name for this thing here, a label, but it doesn't describe it. It's not telling enough. So this is like a preliminary advice. It's not a short title. I don't like it, but this is more precise. Small decisions can add up unnoticed to big costs. In German, it's very easy for me because I erase a lot of small words like prepositions and something, and it's really understandable. But for yeah, kind of bad German, but it's okay because it's just a title. I'm not so good in English like that, so I will leave it up to you. Um, yeah, but this I looked it up in Wikipedia, I think. Um, so I went to the primary source, and this is way too short. I wouldn't understand how it actually works. So if you describe things, always go how the mechanics of causality work. So, for example, if I say to you, fatty meals cause fat gain, then this is just a statement, and I could name the zettel like like the fat table phenomenon or the fat meal phenomenon or something like that, and it would be uh, not understandable later on, even if I had read some things about it. Um, the better the better thing would be to say um, high fat meals encourage the body to store the fat and instead of burning it. So high fat meals have the tendency to make the body to store it in the fat cells compared to a carbohydrate meal or something like that. So causality is a two-part or always stated in two parts. First, you state that there's causality, and then you say how the causality works, the mechanics of the link between cause and effect. Um, then you will have a more clearer content for this note. So I saved, no going back. Okay, my question here, you tagged it with a argument with no evidence. I would correct it to a statement with no evidence. So an argument has premises or premise and conclusions, and I think this is just a statement. But I'm asking you part of curiosity. How will be this tag helpful for in the future? Will you perform a search on it and dedicate a session like 2 3 hours at a time to produce evidence for all the settle that have no evidence? Or I don't understand. I'm just curious. Uh, okay. This is what is missing. Um, where is the reference to Fred Hirsch? I think this is textbook second-hand citation, and one can do it if someone is a journalist, and but I recommend to avoid it, to really avoid it. Don't do second-hand citations ever. So this is a bit too short. I would have to reread if it would be my title. I would have to reread the study again to really make um, uh, make sense out of this, and this would be too much hassle. Oh, we are at the end. I won't show all in the video, but okay. I was, of course, I'm now quite critical and quite not understandable with my English. But don't worry, you will improve very fast because you have done careful work and learning will go on. Thank you, and uh, until next time.